Hi everybody. For those of you who don't know me or have never met me or sat in a classroom with me, my name is Patty Horton, or some of you know me as author Patricia Horton, and I am a direct channel for spirit. And I wanted to share with you as we come into this brand new year, a three-part series that I'm going to read to you from my book, I Am the Light, The Wisdom of Jesus in the 21st Century, that I released last October in 2021. As I was sitting here and going through the motions of releasing the old to make way for the new, I was guided to read something to you from my book, and I was guided to read it to you in a three-part series. So today is going to be part one. As I read part one, it's going to connect you, the reader, with a personal experience of my own, and where I went to a spiritualist camp, and I spent a week there, and I spent the week there for growth and sharing in the energy of other people who were of like mind, and going to see a teacher that I thought was a teacher for me, and somebody that I valued their information and their guidance and their books and their lectures and all of those things. So I have to tell you that I was more than thrilled, super excited to be able to attend this 1 week workshop. And I went and traveled to the Omega Institute in New York, in Rhinebeck, New York. That would be in upstate. It's a beautiful spiritualist camp. They offer all kinds of classes, all kinds of weekend retreats, full week retreats, 1 day retreat, whatever it is that you're seeking. The Omega Institute brings teachers from across the world to this place in New York to teach students and people who have followed these teachers' works. So one of the teachers that happened to be at this workshop was someone that I had followed, and somebody that I had looked up to, and somebody that I had learned from the things that they had written in their book, and I was super excited to be sharing space and energy inside of this workshop, this full week workshop with this teacher who, I don't want to say that I adored this teacher, but it was somebody that I looked up to and thought, what does it take to model myself or become like, or all of those things? How do I emulate this teacher's energy? How do I become like this teacher, right? And as I speak these words, I think to myself, I'm using the words emulate and become like and all of those things, because back in 2013, when I had began my reconnection and wanting to expand on my ability as a trance medium, I had found myself as a beginning student, someone who thought only this could happen for somebody else, or only these teachers were wise enough and connected enough and spiritual enough and chosen enough to emulate those things that I desired and that I was already emulating. I just didn't know it, right? But when we're drawn to things like that, there's so many things that are connected to it. Lessons, life lessons, lessons of the heart, lessons of the spirit, lessons of the soul, lessons of the ego. So as I move into reading you today, part one, which is called My Father's House, it's on page 17 of the book. So if you have the book, you can follow along. If you don't have the book, you can listen to the spoken word, the written word, and I'm going to speak it to you. And I just wanted to share this with you because as we move into 2023, it's going to be a big year of growth for a lot of people, and people are going to be seeking teachers, and people are going to be seeking those who can teach them how to tune in or tap into that divinity within themselves. And by the time we get to the end of the third day, there's a valuable lesson attached to my trip when I went out to Omega. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to begin reading, and on page 17 it's called My Father's House. I'm going to put on my glasses, and I'm going to share what had happened on the first day of class, and then I'm going to share with you my author's reflections. And when we get to the end of the reading, if there's anything extra personal that I would like to share in this video that happened for me while I was there during that day, I'm going to share it with you as well here in this video. So let's get going. and thank you for joining me. The Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York is a camp where spiritualists go to study with teachers from all over the world. It is there that I have had some of the most amazing experiences in my spiritual journey, each one serving me in the form of enlightenment for the good of my soul's evolution. Each trip to Omega has been a blessing, but my reflections now bring me to the summer of 2013. During one experience while there, I was visited by Jesus, and I remember his essence and vibration so clearly. As he appeared before me, I asked him, "Why are you here?" He said to me, "Because you asked me to be." As I sat with him, he asked me to travel with him and told me, "I have something of value to show you." He then took me on a journey, and he showed me the true meaning of, "In my Father's house, there are many mansions." Jesus explained to me as a representation of the levels of our soul's growth and how we all fit into this puzzle called life. He then shared with me these words: "You are each on different levels for growth, unique and individual to your soul's needs." He showed me that when we do return to spirit, we will continue to work on that same level. This is where, according to Jesus, our soul moves on to after an earthly life. He then said these words to me: "You are always striving for growth in whatever plane your soul resides." During our time together, I could clearly see a mansion, and this mansion consisted of many different floors, all vibrating to different colors. I could see multiple people working on each level of awareness as they peacefully went about the work at hand. Jesus made me aware of how many of us will walk a similar path when we are alive in this world. His next words to me were these: "Each of you are here to teach one another from a perspective of your own life experience." He spoke to me about how this is where we can learn from one another if we are truly open to that particular lesson. This place I visited was filled with love and light. There were teachers or guides working with each individual soul. These souls were working towards perfection as a way to reach the next floor. Jesus then told me this: "Each floor is just a stepping stone towards that perfect oneness that you are each seeking with God." When I returned and before Jesus left me, he asked me to do something for him. "Tell all of the people in this room, those who will listen to you, about what you have been shown. Tell them how they are each individual lights who strive for the same thing, oneness with Source, with God." I was reminded during my time with Jesus that in the grand scheme of things, we are all light. We all come from love, and this incarnation is just another avenue from which to learn. This is the place where we will continue to grow on a soul level. For now, as we each seek enlightenment, I was able to see how each individual soul, each person, has teachers in the spirit world called guides. It is my guides who assure me that when a person is ready, their guides will step forth and make their presence known in order to assist each person in their spiritual journey. This was channeled from Jesus on August 20th, 2013. Author's Reflections. During the time of this workshop, I was being taught by two spiritual tutors, one American and one English. Both of these men are well known in the spiritual community, and to be taught by them was exciting to say the least. Now, during my drive to New York from Illinois, I was told that something magical would happen for me during my time there. It was what I needed to hear. While on the road, I seemed to have been placed in some scary situations, and being alone had become stressful. There were even a handful of times when I wanted to turn around and go home. Yet I was encouraged by my counsel to continue on. Stay the course, they said, which of course I did. I was looking forward to seeing what would transpire when I immersed myself in this spiritual experience. I was shown that indeed it would be an eye-opening week, and one that I shall never forget. And I haven't. The visitation with Jesus you just read about happened to transpire on the first day in workshop, and as you can imagine, I was extremely excited about it. My bubble, however, was soon to be popped by the American tutor. As I saw it, his ego was a bit inflated, and he seemed to want people to believe that only he was gifted enough to communicate with the ascended masters. He had a group of followers who came along with him and hung on his every word. The place where Jesus had told me to stand up and relay his message to everyone who would listen pulled at me. I, of course, had told Jesus, "No way am I sharing this," and I sat unmoved. After numerous people had shared that Jesus had come to them, the American tutor asked, "Is there anyone else who Jesus has shown up for?" Out of nowhere, my hand went up into the air. I was still thinking, "No way," while asking myself, what is happening here? I found myself standing before the group with a microphone in my hand. I proceeded to tell everyone what Jesus had said to me and what I had seen. All eyes were on me, and I could feel that the people in this classroom were resonating with what I had to say. The American tutor then came to the edge of the stage, and he looked at me, his eyes going up and down my body. What he said next shocked me. "Do you actually think that Jesus has the time to show up for someone like you?" As I sat down, completely mortified, the tutor told me that I had conjured Jesus up in my mind and that my own imagination had me believing he was speaking with me. The experience I described was impossible, he said. Then he moved on, leaving me feeling deflated. The rest of the day I kept quiet into myself. I began to doubt in the guidance from my counsel and was confused as to why I had really been guided to be there. The rest of this week would have many twists and turns, which I will share as we move into the next experience. The magic is worth the read. I share this reflection here to tell you that no person, no matter how famous they are, can ever declare what he does not know. We are each tested throughout our lives. It is how we choose to study for and pass the test that matters most. Jesus told his followers, "What I can do, so can you, and more." Now it is up to you to choose how you share your message with those who may or may not be ready to hear it. Yet the validation when one accepts those messages is wonderful, but we can also learn much about ourselves from rejection, especially when it comes from those who we look to as our teachers. This is where we will see our inner strength rise as we validate our truth no matter what someone else tells us to believe about ourselves. Today I ask you to believe in what you think is impossible. This is where you can begin to listen closely to what some have called the voices within their own minds. So that's the end of reading 1, the reading for today. And as I read this, so many memories come flooding back to me. So many memories of what I had experienced up until the moment I first stepped foot into this class. The excitement that I brought with me to the classroom as I sat there with 40 strangers. And it's interesting because there were 40 students within this classroom. The isolation in a way that I felt because I was there solo and I didn't know anybody. And there were so many people that were there with others that they knew. They traveled together, they knew each other. And so I just really felt like the Lone Ranger. When the American tutor came over to the edge of the stage and he looked my body up and down, it took me back over my life where I felt judged. Felt judged for the way that I looked, felt judged for the words that I spoke, felt judged for standing in the light of my own truth. I felt, in a way, I felt humiliated. But when I stood up and I was standing there with a microphone in my hand and I had no idea how it got there, how my hand went into the air, and I began to speak, then I could feel the essence of Jesus moving through me as I shared his words. And remember, this is what he said. His words were, "Tell all of the people in this room, those who will listen to you, about what you have been shown." And as I did that, I could see the people resonating with it. It was almost as if I felt as I was a tutor in that moment. Yet I was quickly put in my place as a student and as somebody who was beneath those who knew more than I did. So, as I leave you with this first part of this series, I want you to really listen to the words that I shared with you here, the words from Jesus, the Master, the author's reflections that I have shared with you, and see where you may connect to an experience in your life that may have made you feel less than by someone who thought that they were more than you. It's a great opportunity for us to see where we stood in our own power or where we retreated out of fear, and where we allowed judgment to be the leader of the band in that moment. It was a very eye-opening day. It was a defeating day. It was the very first practical experience that we had done in the workshop that day. 9 o'clock in the morning this had happened, and we worked until 5:30 in the afternoon. So as we moved through our practices that day, those stinging words still stuck with me, as I felt less than a person who was just a man and nothing more. So I'm going to see you all tomorrow. Tune in for part 2. Thanks, everybody. See you then.